If you haven't subscribed to the Kingdom Cast TV, we are on YouTube, Kingdom Cast TV. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Kingdom Cast TV, all separate words. We are everywhere, Kingdom Cast TV. Welcome back to Kingdom Cast TV. This is episode 19, and we have a great guest for you guys today. I am your host, Mighty Fuzz Young. This is my co-host, the great Anthony Graffeo.
What's up, guys? Yeah, looking forward to this one, man. Always looking forward to learning from somebody that has a different position in the game, because when we bring all the positions together, that's how we actually win. So without further ado, why don't you introduce?
Yes, I would like to introduce my brother from another, Shane Clark. There's a lot of rumbling about reclaiming your money back from the IRS, and this man has done it, has accomplished it, and I can't wait for this information to get out because there's so many people that just want this information. Shane, welcome to Kingdom Cast TV.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me. Yeah, man, it's been a journey. There's a lot to learn, a lot to cover. I try to steer away from the sovereign citizen label, because that's an oxymoron, and there's no substantiated law to support that. But it's sovereign, right? The people are supposed to be sovereign, but we're sovereign as a body collective, right? So it takes everybody to know the system, know the law, how we got here, and how to navigate the arena that they're in. And yeah, the income tax obviously affects everybody, but there's really thin parameters about what applies as income, what's wages, what's withholdings, and how to navigate it. So yeah, happy to be here, man.
For sure. The sovereign citizen thing, it's funny because I used to really be into it and look into all that stuff. And, I think the most important thing that people really need to recognize is, I'm sure you know about all this, is that we are a corporation, America. America's a corporation. It got sold back to the Crown and the Vatican. I think 1871 was Ulysses S. Grant sold us back. And I think what a main thing, especially with somebody like Fuzz, who's a constitutionalist, I've been having this thought of I don't think that the Constitution really even stands in America, especially because if we are a corporation, right, and DC, we know, is not even a part of America. That's where all of our laws are being pushed, and our government is as a whole. They're on a completely different, I wouldn't even know what you would call it, right? They're their own entity in DC, and they're telling us, oh yeah, we rule over you, and you really can't do shit about it. Especially, I don't want to go too deep into Epstein stuff or any of that. I just want to use it as an example, the Epstein stuff. We don't give a fuck. We don't operate under the same law as you guys. We just LARP like we do. We LARP like we know the Constitution, we know your oaths, we know all this stuff, but really we're a separate entity. We're an entity of Satan, and we have power from the highest levels of the cabal, from the Vatican to Israel to the city of London, So I'm sure you know all about this stuff, how we're a corporation. So if you want to kind of get into that detail first, because I'm sure you're way more versed than I am.
No, yeah, you're pretty on point. That they operate off code, statutes, and regulations. That's not law, right? Law is really spiritual, and it's outlined, in the Bible. The Bible's a book of law, and the Constitution, it says our rights are inherent by our Creator. So all these code, statutes, and regulations, they have to go through constitutional due process. When they are brought against us and we believe they are unconstitutional, it's on us to challenge them. And without the public knowing their private rights, there's a big separation between public and private, and they give you a public entity, your legal name, your social security number, and those are all governed by their code, statutes, and regulations. It's not a party. There's no parties in the Constitution. They have us fighting over breadcrumbs, while the founding documents should be the law enforced on the land, and that's the law of the land. They operate in banking circles. So it's like the law of water, right? It's all commercial. Um, it's all banking, you know, and they peg us as the debtors. You know, we don't have any sound money. There's no intrinsic value in the system. So it's all debt, and it's an unsustainable path, really, you know. So it's things like Social Security, you know, it is a trust, you know, but it's not an express trust. There's no like trust indenture, and it's written out where whose position is who, and all these things. So we're just subjects of their codes and regulations, and we really don't have power in it because we don't know it. There's no way to know all the codes and everything, and then what arena you're in. Like, banking, you're going to be in the um, uniform commercial code, and the United States has the USC, the United States codes, and the agencies that they delegate to run, like, for the IRS, for example, that's going to be all in Title 26 of the United States Code. So there's just so much to digest and navigate, and there are
For sure.
there are simpler options that we can do that they're simple once you can comprehend them and apply them. But
Can I bring you some back for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because this is important because like a lot of people are new to this information. But you said that they rule by the law of water, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the admiralty maritime law. And Santos Bonacci used to talk about this a lot, how we're basically lost cargo.
Right.
We come to the doctors the dock. We sign our documents.
Right.
Can you kind of break that down of like what that actually means of being under this admiralty law?
Yeah, so like a shipping vessel comes from the water, right? Gets berthed at the dock, right? That's BERTH. When they arrive at the dock, there's a certificate of manifestation presented. That's everything that's on the vessel that's going to be sold on land. So, that can be interpreted as your certificate of live birth. It's describing a product, and it's it registers you in. So when you register things, you're giving up ownership to them and submitting to their system. Now we have to interface with the system in some way, right? Like, we're not just going to be like, living in the woods and have no money and all these things. We have to interface with the system in some way. So we're told to be in the world, not of the world, right? So it's ye must be born again kind of thing, right? Like, where we can create entities that interface with banks and commerce, but are under the common law, right? The contract, right? So that's where you get into the trust stuff and everything like that. So I don't know if that covered what you're asking, but yeah.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and it it just shows that they had to repackage us, right? And you see this, there's such a biblical aspect to this whole thing, and you do so well. We've done episodes where you explain where there's passages that connect with the trust and stuff like that. So let's start with what has been accomplished with the IRS, right? Let's get on base here, because some people may think that you have to change your status, or you might have to give up your right to be a citizen in America. You recently got back 4 years. I know I did a clip yesterday saying 3, but you got actually back 4 years
Mhm.
of taxes. What does that look like, and how can people learn about that?
All right. So most of the concepts and framework that I implemented were from this book called Cracking the Code by a gentleman named Pete Hendrickson. And it's a lot of information to take in, and it's a very in-depth breakdown of the system of taxation in America. But it really covers, what are wages, what's income, what's the definitions that apply, right? And he's got a website that I'd like to plug as well. It's losthorizons.com. You can get on there. You can see how people navigated different filings, whether they had C corps, S corps, LLCs. Um, the little course that I put together was to help W-2 and 1099 earners explain or understand their position and how it applies to them. And yeah, so the process is really going through and actually amending your past returns. And you know, you use a 4852 to amend a W-2, and you reflect the right numbers. You know, it's all record keeping, right? Like Proverbs 11:1 says, you know, false scales are an abomination to the Most High, but a just scale is right. So it's all about accounting, and you know, that's how we operate or interface with this Roman system that we're in. You know, it's all banking. It's very similar to the days of old. You know, it's just gotten so much more complicated, and you know, hidden in codes and endless codes, endless regulations that they can change at any time. You know, so yeah, it's a lot to take in, but you know, it can be very simple if you know, study it, but implement it, right? Like I can explain it, but I can't understand it for you. I can explain it, but I can't do it for you, you know?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's a you know, there's a need to to retract back, unlearn these systems that we've been told that we have to partake in, right? Like you can't really get rid of your social, but you don't have to use it, you know? And most people do use it though to work and do all these things. So it's like, are you gonna study these codes, see what income is defined as, does it apply to you, and then, you know, go through the process of actually amending everything. And that's what it is. You know, you go through each year, you amend each filing, and you know, the IRS really isn't the problem. It's the Federal Reserve. You know, the IRS is the accounting arm of the Federal Reserve. So as long as the numbers check out, they're gonna cross check that, you know, cross check, you know, what you send in. And um, you know, some people, you know, use these things um dishonorably. I don't know if that's the word, because, you know, obviously these agencies aren't really operating in honor, but they only answer to their forms. So you got to kind of get into the forms a little bit, understand how they work, how they tie together. And there's real freedom in it, you know. It's not like totally operating outside the system, but learning to navigate within it as well.
So would you say, like, for an example, I was talking to somebody about this the other day about just money altogether. I feel like money is just a manipulation system that is backed by dark magic. You know, like you said, we're the debtors,
Mhm.
right? Or we're known as the debtors or whatever. It's debt. Like every time that we like Biggie said, "More money, more problems." Like it's a real thing, and I think that they use this system against us. You said it's like a Roman system, which is interesting because if you actually look at your social security card, it will actually show two pillars, two Roman pillars. And this is like, it goes even like past, I mean, before Rome, you know, I would say it's more Babylon,
Yeah.
and Babylon just integrated with Rome. I mean, that's what we're watching here in America as well, is like this new Babylon rising. And who are the bankers? You know, we won't get into that right now, but we know who they are.
Exactly. You know,
Got 3 smiles.
yeah, and it's, you know, it's like, are they true Judah? You know, are they the true you know, Israel's Jacob, you know, it's a people. Okay, so
Yeah.
so it is Babylon, because they take these words. The English language is all spells and curses, right? Like we don't really know what we're talking about when we say things like, you know, what's a person? There's like multiple definitions for what a person is. It's a legal entity.
Real quick, before you go into that,
Yeah.
what would you call that? If you're not speaking and people don't understand what you're saying, what is that usually called?
Um, what is it
Babel?
usually called? Sorry, reframe that a little bit.
What do they usually call it? Well, you said it. What is it?
Babel?
Babylon. You're
Babylon. Yeah,
Babylon.
yeah, they're
Babbling.
babbling
You're
on.
babbling on.
Exactly.
Babylon. They're telling you.
And then it's like
They're
it's
literally
like
telling you.
it's like a baby loan, right? You loan your baby to this system, that's pledged as a debtor, that whose future labor is going to back the fiat currency that they print more and more of, and it just gets devalued every time. It's like so unsustainable, but we can't, they don't offer us another solution, right? Some people get into, which I'm, really studying and trying to learn how to execute. So I'll just introduce the concept, but you can get into like the Uniform Commercial Code, like UCC
UC.
3 and 9, and talks about negotiable instruments and these other forms of legal tender that, there's real truth to them, but when you use them, there's a very well chance that you might have to go into court and litigate and things like that. So it takes a lot to comprehend what you're doing and then actually do it and navigate it. You know, um, yeah, we operate in a totally debt-based system. Social Security is socialism. It's a trust, but what does that mean? There's got to be, positions to the trust, like who's the trustees, who's the beneficiaries, and it's an implied trust. There's no expression of the position. So, they expect us to pay into the system, and then by the time we get the funds back to support the last 10 years of our lives, it's a devalued currency. You get hardly enough to survive. It, it's unsustainable, and if we so not trying to jump back on topics, but like if we operate in trust, it's all about managing your own affairs, taking dominion, taking authority, navigating land, air, water, that we're told to do in Genesis.
Yeah.
Real quick, do you know, like, because I've heard this before, you probably know it more than I would, but I've heard that, like, once we're born, we're actually worth $1 million. And then when we sign that contract, we basically sell that $1 million to these trustees that own us. And that, like, when we actually, they trade basically our names on like a dark system, on like a I would call it like a black web, right? Like it's an underground black web that they actually trade our name and our shit across the system. But I've heard that like people actually like they create these trusts, right? That you're talking about, and then they sell their trust to like different like health insurance companies. Like I know somebody that was doing this and they made like millions of dollars doing it. Where they were just buying trust after trust, creating trust after trust, and then selling that trust to these health insurance companies that buy them on the like this dark web or whatever.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of a lot of good teachers, but then there's a lot of theories as well that may or may not work for some people or have worked in the past. Then they change the goalpost, and it's really hard to say what works. What
There's a lot of
people.
scammers,
Yeah.
lot of
Everyone wants
scammers.
to sell you another process, another thing. They want to basically get you into a state of fight or flight where it's like, you got to do this by this time and you got to do, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, we're not supposed to live that way. Like the kingdom of heaven is supposed to be on earth as well. Like we're supposed to, live in harmony with nature and the system and all these things. It's not supposed to be like this fearful situation. And it's fearful for a lot of people when they deal with the IRS or they deal with these things because they don't know, right? Like my people will perish for lack of knowledge, right?
Hosea
And when you
4:7.
have the knowledge, it's actually for me, it was like, okay, you get this knowledge. It's almost worse, right? Because you have it, but you don't apply it. So like you're caught up in this system, but you feel like stuck, like there's nothing you can do. It's almost like ignorance is bliss is, a better position to be in. Um, but yeah, there used to be a website called gmeiutility.com. You could like search your social and see where it's been traded and stuff, and they shut down that site. But I did it years ago, dude. There was like 500 pages of like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Chinese
They're making
companies and
bank
all this
off of
stuff,
you.
trading it, and it's like, yeah, you could see these
So what is
numbers,
it?
but how do you reclaim
What is
it?
it doing?
You know?
Is it making like a projection on what you're gonna be worth? Like what? So the Social Security, they're making a projection of what what you're gonna like, how you're gonna make money, or like where does the counter of the money, like, okay, you Anthony said when you're born it's worth $1 million, and then they start trading it. What is that million based off? Like what you're gonna pay in taxes,
Well,
how much money you're gonna make, like how do they make that projection?
yeah, I mean, with that theory, which I think there's got to be truth to it, somewhere. I mean, is there a trust account that you can pull out money from? No, it's credit, So credit and debt, like wherever there's a credit, there has to be a debt, So, um, in a true, let me frame this right. Like, whenever you sign anything, and take out a loan or an application or anything, like they securitize that instrument and they trade that. So like you get a car loan, they trade that. You get a mortgage, they're trading that note. And what happens in like a mortgage, like we live in like a mortgage system, mortgage is a death pledge, and it's what happens is, they create a deed of trust at closing and they put the bank as the beneficiary. So the bank is like, they're trading this promissory note that you created, like your credit, your signature created that. Like a valid contract is supposed to be two wedding signatures, but like only you sign a mortgage note, So you create a promissory note, they hold that, and you basically, rent your land back from them. Like you're the tenant. And that's how they view it. And that's obviously everyone, you kind of have to take out a mortgage to buy a property these days, so like you have to navigate that. And they can sell your note, they can do whatever because they you train uh, I might be using wrong terminology here, but like you transferred it to them, like you gave them permission to uh
Yeah.
to sell this note.
Real quick, because I guess what I'm asking is, and we'll go back to like those QAnon theories specifically, where like they were gonna say that we can pull from our Social Security because of what they've been using, well, of what we're worth as citizens. There was an account that one day we will be able to access to pull to extract money out, and
Yeah, that's
obviously
not
this
gonna
was all
happen.
it's all obviously it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
But my
yeah.
point is, just maybe the idea that we're worth money is like what Anthony was saying. Is there where they're extracting money and moving and trading on our behalf because we don't have our affairs in order?
Yeah, well, like we're pinged as the debtor, right? The entity they give us is the debtor, but if it's our energy and our projected labor that's backing it, we're the creditor, right? So that's like flipping the money tables, right? Like,
Mhm.
and um and it's hard to do if you're only operating from the social security number, right? Because it's a fight every time. Whereas, if you get into these private trusts and stuff, the trustee is the creditor, and you have more leverage to control what happens to your affairs and your assets and your business. And um yeah, like the all caps name, the social, like that creates like a sole proprietorship, and that's like the lowest form of business, right? Then you can get up to a LLC, that's limited liability. Then you go corporations, and then, trusts are above that. So, a trust can have an LLC, a trust can have these things, and a trust could be the sole member of it. And yeah, so like you're interfacing with commerce, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. It's an entity that you create. And yeah, like I said, we have the right to contract. So
Can I say something quick? I think it's also like what people need to recognize is like our, and you kind of said it, is our energy is a currency,
mhm.
you know? And they know that. And like how you said, they want us to have us in this fear system with the IRS, is they want to have us trauma bond it to them. They want us to be in this low, not to get new age, but like low frequency. They want that. They know that. This is why they've changed our music. This is because we're way more powerful than we're led to believe, and that they know that. They're the ones that keep all the secrets. They know all the languages, all the codes, all the things. But more importantly, I think currency actually comes from vibration. And I think that if we actually left this Babylonian debt system, I think that the currency of us, us just giving energy off of each other is what can fuel the entire world. And this is why we have these lines and divides and conquers, because they know this. And if not to get into this kind of stuff, but if you see that everything around us is a Saturn moon matrix that we're living in, and there's black squares all over from our phones to our TVs, and then you see the people that are wearing those black squares on their heads, and they're the ones that are controlling the money, controlling the media, creating the hype and the anger and the frustration and the sadness, then you recognize, oh, they're actually feeding off of our energy. They're doing some sort of like spell to get us. And the money is just the system that they set up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you wear a black hat on a black square on your head when you graduate, right? You get a master's, who's your master? It's like, who designed the curriculum that you're learning and all these things. It's Rockefellers and Rothschilds, and you get into all that, and it all goes back to banking, and it's such a broad and tough system to understand and navigate and apply, because every time you contract, every time you interface with a bank or sign something, you are using an entity and interfacing with this system. You can't get rid of the system. We should be learning to contract privately and do all these things, but I mean, let's face it, like you have to bank somehow. You have to exchange currency, and that's exactly what it is. Like, you can go back to the law of water, the current of the sea, the banks control the flow, and you got liquid assets, you're drowning in debt. And so there's,
It's all water. Yeah.
it's
all
all
water.
conceptual, but there's real ways to apply that,
Well, I want to just say, like, back to the water stuff, because I feel like it's such an important thing for people to really recognize, is like, not to get into like flat earth stuff here, but like the firmament, right? Like the firmament, it says in the Bible that there's water above us, right? He separated the waters from the waters. That's why the sky's blue, because there's water above us, right? So when we come from heaven, and you said we go to a dock, right? Where do we come from heaven? We have to go through the water, right? What are we doing when we're being born? We're in a womb full of water. We're basically in a system that is a bigger system, right? Earth is the womb of heaven. And when we come here, we come through that system, the water system, the canal, right? The birthing canal, into the docks, into the doctor. And like you said, we signed the document. Like, people really need to recognize that they know this stuff. We don't know this. Well, we know this, but other people that are listening probably don't know this. We are being ruled by water. So really, what is the way to really be ruled by? Is it the rule of land, or is it the rule of God, right? But we live in a land rule, right? This is like, they basically make it more simplified. They don't know, people don't know that we're being ruled by the laws of water. We follow the laws of land. We should be following the law of God, which is the spiritual law, which is the strongest law. So can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, the kingdom is within, right? And without, meaning it's an estate. So you go to the Old Testament, that's going to set the foundation for trust law, right? Like, before Christ, Yeshua, was on earth, it was Yah, the creator, the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, is to guide you. That's the trustee. So there's three positions in a trust. There's a grantor, settler, and then a trustee, and then a beneficiary. And then there's got to be bylaws for the trust. So that would be the commandments, right? You follow the commandments, you allow the Holy Spirit to guide you as trustee, you reap the benefits of the kingdom, sound mind, peaceful heart, all these things. And that's, how everything's set up, everything's set up as a trust. I mean, you can derive a trust out of, you go to a restaurant and order food, right? Like, you're saying, you're trusting that you enter into a contract, right, with the restaurant or the waiter, right? And you expect the cook to cook what you said, and then the waiter to bring it to you, and then you benefit from it by, enjoying the meal with your friends or family, and then you pay the bill and the trust is settled, right? So we can implement these things in our own lives financially, spiritually as well, but financially, right? Like when you start these private trusts and stuff like that, sorry not to get off topic from this tax stuff, but you're telling God like, hey, I'm confident, I'm ready to handle my own affairs and steward your riches and do these kind of things where it goes back to the law of the land, right? Like, so a private trust, I mean, you don't need a ton of assets to start them, but you do need to fund them for them to be recognized. So, um, the first asset that was granted to me for my trust was a piece of silver. So that's portable land. So, and, that's the law of the land. So it's, the right to contract is the common law. The first asset granted comes from the land. It's not a statutorily created entity. It's not created by codes and statutes and regulations. Um, when you operate in commerce, you do have to navigate these statutory codes and stuff. But you're in the world, not of the world, kind of thing. Going back to that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm watching this conversation and trying to stay in the
Yeah.
parameters. This is the great thing about this subject, guys. It's not only juicy, and it's where you kind of bring all the conspiracies into an actual solution. I know we skimmed over it, and I just wanna nail down what exactly happened. But without you can't understand one without the other, and that's why it's so important that we're spending time here explaining the spiritual aspect of what's going on here. And like you said, you were dealing with the IRS, and they're just accountants. And when you explained that to me on the phone, it really simplified it for me, bro, because it's like we look at it like a boogeyman, but they're just the accounting arm of the Federal Reserve. And as long as you have your affairs in order, everything works out in our favor. um what exactly did you get back? What was the process, and how could other people start this process?
Yeah, just to touch on that, like, they're not something to fear. If you submit some forms and stuff and you're just trying different processes that you learn and stuff, I mean, for the most part, you know, they're just gonna like if they're like way off, they're just gonna disregard them. Like, it's not like you're just, someone's gonna knock on your door right next week and you're gonna get arrested and all this stuff because it's just not how it works. Now you want the numbers to check out because they can go back and audit you like years later, right? So what I said was I don't make income. I mean flat out. What I made doesn't fall under the definition of income. So if you look this stuff up on Google or ChatGPT and all this stuff, I mean, it's all programmed as well. So they're gonna kind of redirect you to state
Important, bro. Important. Yep.
so
100%.
I said, what I made was private earnings, and my earnings are private property. And this is essentially what you're saying. You don't have to explain yourself. You explain it on the forms. And like I said, it's all accounting. So, you get your income to zero. I mean, these elites and stuff, they all do the same thing. They transfer money made into trusts and into assets and stuff to get that income down, whether it's zero or not. They can make $1 million a year. They put everything into assets and stuff like that to make it look like for their write-offs to make it look like they make 70K a year or whatever it is. Like,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, flat out, that's what I said. I said, I don't make wages according to Title 26, 3401A that defines wages. I'm not an employee, Title 26, 3401C. And if you look that definition up, I mean, it says includes federal employees. So these definitions are very vague, right? So includes can mean um, other entities plus federal employees, or is the definition of employee only federal employees? And then is a federal employee someone that was elected and holds public office? Like, it's like, you know, they're not making it easy to navigate. So, what you're really doing is saying, like, hey, under penalty of perjury, this is what, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not an employee. I don't make wages, and you're essentially putting the burden of proof on them, So I actually, they didn't answer me for a couple months, and dude, when I first did it, I didn't really know what I was doing. I connected with a lot of people that have gone through this process, and he's like, yeah, this is just what you do. And so I'm sitting here with papers everywhere. I'm trying to go through taxes and stuff. I'm not really like a financial guy. I don't have any type of background in that, or especially institutionalized education on it and stuff like that. But I go through dude, I hand wrote all the forms. Like, it was kind of sloppy looking. I'm like, ah, man, maybe they're not going to accept this. Like, I'm feeling uneasy about it, but I had already sent them in. So a couple months later, so the whole thing is, this is what I also, guide people through in the course that I put together, is like the administrative process, how to keep your records clean and stuff. So you scan everything, you take copies of everything. So like, they didn't answer me for like 3 or 4 months. So I sent them copies of everything with a new cover letter explaining everything. You send everything certified mail, so the return receipt. So there's a number that you get back. Probably have one somewhere. You get back the green card that they signed that they got it, right? So that's your proof. And dude, I enforced it 2 times, thinking like, they're probably just going to disregard this, but I already sent it in. So I'm like, why not, And then, yeah, two weeks later, they sent me the check. So it took, they're supposed to respond within 30 days, but it took about 6 months to get everything back.
So you're saying that you got all your taxes back for those 3 years, or any discrepancies? Or what exactly did you get back for those 4 years, rather?
Yeah, I got state, federal, Medicare, and Social Security.
All back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you were, because if someone, when people hear this, especially the people that are looking into this stuff, they get so scared. They're like, oh, the feds are going to kick down my door. But really slow it down. When you take the fear away, the IRS wouldn't cut the man the check. He
Yeah.
obviously had his affairs in order.
Yeah, and people do use like different processes, man. You can get into 1099s and all this stuff, and there's real weight to them, but the closed mouths don't get fed. If you just sit back and allow these things to control your affairs, it's exactly that. They'll take everything you give them, and it's
What is it? Silence is acquiescence, right?
yeah, exactly. Silence is acquiescence. And, even after I got the checks, I'm thinking like, feeling uneasy about it. Oh man, what, did they issue these prematurely? Did they, scan everything through? Did everything check out? And I mean, over a year, so I, I guess.
FBI just breaks through your door right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but even if something like that happens, I mean,
Yeah.
they're charging a name. They're charging an entity that they created, not the surety, Proverbs 11:15, he who surety for a stranger shall be punished, or shall smart for it, but in Old English it shall be punished. He who hates suretyship is sure. So, that's how they got us. They got us pinged as sureties. And dude, I didn't know what I didn't know what surety meant, and all that stuff, and suretyship and equity and stuff like that. So it gets into that realm, which is, the spiritual banking and stuff like that. And you see people talk about the straw man and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, theoretically it's a straw man. It's an entity that isn't you per se, but you're the
It's a
principal.
trust, right? That's a trust.
Yeah. I mean,
Did you already have your trust set up? Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No,
I
no.
was like, okay,
Yeah.
so you got your money back first before you had your trust.
Well, I did have the trust set up, but they're
Okay, you
not
had it set up.
related.
Okay,
They're not related
okay,
because it's
okay.
what I operate from is a non-grantor trust. So
That's what I have.
yeah, so I'm not the grantor. So like nothing's
Yeah,
connected to my name. Like if you do an asset search, you know, my home, my cars, nothing's gonna come
it's
up.
all in that trust. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The same thing. Um, isn't there like a very important thing if people are going to start doing this? Because this is what I was taught, that you can't use a black pen.
Yeah, you know, colors supposedly mean stuff. I mean, I do abide by that because it may or may not hold weight, but what really holds weight, like on an IRS form, is what you put on the forms. You
Yeah,
know, when you sign a check, it's more about like a special endorsement and you know how you sign. Like I sign everything as trustee because I only operate from this trust, and then you know you don't want to commingle too. Like you don't want to you know have your funds and the trust funds mix. You want to have contracts in place that you know I can pay myself weekly for running the trust. So there's so much to unpack there with the private trust too. I don't want to go
yeah.
off.
We'll do it for another episode.
Yeah,
We'll do
yeah.
it for another episode.
Trust,
You know
trust
what?
can be a whole episode. We can
Oh
really
yeah,
break it
for
down.
Definitely.
sure,
You,
dude.
you know
For
why, guys?
sure.
You know why? Like, look what you just said, Anthony. You were like, "Yo, I'm working out of a trust. I also worked out of a trust." It's a lot. It's a lot more common. It's something that it's tangible for the listener, and people should take themselves out of the public and put themselves in the private. I 100% believe that we so you basically got 4 years back
Mhm.
of your taxes, and you did this outside of the trust. You didn't. It has nothing to do with declaration of status. This is you are literally telling your neighbors right now on this camera that they can, if they do the knowledge, if they get their affairs in order, that they can do this themselves at home.
Yeah, totally. And you know, I really suggest going to that website, man, Lost Horizons. There's a ton of information, examples. You could find whatever filings you have. You can there's so many success stories and responses, right? Like that's another thing that I offer in the course. It is a streamlined um, process of the concepts and framework from this book, along with some other sources, of course. But you know, I give credit where credit's due, and you know, I suggest everyone support Pete, man. Send him a donation. You know, he put this together, and
I'm gonna buy that book for sure.
he's a good dude, man. So, you know, on my on the course, I give you a PDF copy of the book, but I also offer the administrative process of how to keep your records, how to enforce what you're saying, and there's a couple rebuttal letters. Okay, here let me just backtrack a little bit, right? Because if you're going to engage in the system and you know use your social to work and stuff like many people have to do, you know, so you want to let me just plug my laptop in. You want to you want to file, you know, get to a point where you can file a W-4,
Mm.
everyone files a W-4. So the new W-4 just came out for 2026 and the exempt box is back on it. Whereas they took it off for like 10 years or something like that. So what people were doing was filing the W-4 and just writing in exempt where the box used to be. For 2026, they put it back on. But there's parameters that you have to meet, the eligibility requirements for exemption. So the requirements are zero income the year before and projected zero income moving forward. So when you correct the record to zero, you know, you meet the eligibility requirements. So basically what a W-4 is telling your employer, that goes to your employer, not the IRS. And that's telling your employer not to take anything out of my checks. I'm going to handle my filings and dealings with the IRS myself.
What about somebody that has their own business, like somebody in my position?
Yeah. So you don't have a W-2 or a W-4, so you're not a wage
Mm.
earner. So that's a that's a blessing in and of itself, right? We want to get away from being wage earners. Like, we're wage slaves, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just what it is, you know? And you know, for someone like you, I definitely I could help you navigate, you know, a little bit, but I definitely suggest getting on that website because there's examples of LLC filings, S corp filings, all these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, when you get into the trust stuff, you know, it's a little bit it's like your private accounting is what you are saying you receive funds as, right? So like it's like receipts receivable, not income. You know, if someone issues you a 1099K or something like that, like you can handle these things with forms, and you know, you can still file. Let me frame this correctly. You know, you can still file for your EIN to keep it in good standing. You know, essentially I have 3 irrevocable trusts, and they're set up like a waterfall. So there's one that I use publicly to face the public with. It's a private trust. It's not a public trust, but I use it publicly. And then the beneficiary of that's another trust, the beneficiary of that's another trust. So, you know, it makes it really easy to convey assets and things like that. And hold on, I'm getting off track here. Oh yeah, so you know, your accounting is what stands. Now you're gonna have to present this if something comes up. Um, but usually, you know, usually it doesn't, but you're gonna have to present um your reasoning and stuff like that. And you can do that through certain forms. But yeah, I don't want to get off topic on
No, no,
the
no,
income
no. And
tax.
I want to say, like, because like the way you're breaking it down is a lot better than, like, you know, there's so many LARPs in that sovereign
Oh,
citizen
forget about
space,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, I got a special license. If I show it to the cops, I'm be fine. The cops like, motherfucker, give me your license right now. I don't give a fuck about your trust. Like, you know, so it's like, and I
Or
feel like
people stealing money and stuff. Yeah, bro. A lot of them. Oh, I'll
there's
represent you. Don't worry. You don't have to learn this stuff.
so
Yeah.
many scammers in that space, bro. And like, it's cool to see like the way that you're breaking it down. And, you know, I really would love to like check out your course as well, you know, and I hope people listening to this join your course. But like, there's so many scammers. So like, just hearing the way that you break it down and the energy that you have towards it, like you definitely have a passion for it. You've learned a fuck ton, which is so important because a lot of people just watch a TikTok video and then they want to just LARP, like, you know, like, oh, I have all the plans for you or whatever. So I really
Right.
do appreciate the passion that you have for it. Then my second thing is, and this is a little bit off topic but still on topic. Have you ever heard that the movie, what the fuck is it called, with Dorothy? I can't think of it. The
Yeah,
Wizard
the
of
Wizard of
Oz
Oz.
is basically all about this, like
Yes, it's
about how
story.
like the wizard is like the Federal Reserve, the straw man is the straw man, the Tin Man with no heart. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if you heard of that before. The gold,
100%.
the fucking road of gold. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like, you know, Kansas is the breadbasket of America, and that was like, you know, your labor was worth its weight in valuable consideration. You were paid and untaxed, and then, you know, they took us off the gold. Um, so it was like follow the yellow brick road. The straw man has no heart. It's just, you know, or no brain, right? The straw man has no brain. The tin man has no heart. The tin is tax
Mm-hmm.
identification number. Um,
Wow.
what are the other ones? Oh, Toto is the dog, and all you have to do is do it. To do, Todo, right? Like,
Yep,
all you gotta do is
yep.
pull back the curtain, and it's like, you know, some fucking wizard, um, that, you know, it's not something to fear. It's just about taking action, but knowledgeable action, right?
Yeah, the wizard definitely wore a tiny hat.
For
We just didn't
sure.
see it. We just didn't see it. It was behind the curtain. It fell off when they pulled it.
And
Yeah,
what
Um,
city's Israel? Tel Aviv.
yeah. Well, you know, when you get into that stuff, I mean, yeah, it is all Rothschild banking, you know, it is all Vatican stuff, and there's an International Monetary Fund that they're all connected to through loans that they gave them back in the day. And um, but like the banks really were started through the Jesuits, you know, like they were doing the Crusades, and they offered storehouses for the men to, you know, store their valuables when they went off to war and stuff. So it's you know, there's a lot to unpack there, but it it's true. It but like, you know, I try to steer away from some of that stuff because I think people like they always want to place blame, you know. They always want to say like, "Oh, it's so and so, it's this group, it's this group." And
Yep.
while it very well may be, you know, I look at what they're doing and how to do it, you know, how to operate in these private trusts, you know, how to and you know, I guarantee you Trump knows all this stuff, man. You know, he
Oh, he
knows about the
definitely
14th
does.
Amendment, he knows about the private trust and you know, we can go over here now if you want, or we could do it on another episode. I could show you like
Now, you,
how to
may
get out of
I,
that court
Shane?
case, you know?
Shane, you said it on one of our episodes, and I really think it's a even better time now. You have seen court documents with Trump showing that he knows how to use all this with the trust and the all caps name and not operating in that. You've seen that?
Yeah, yeah. So he used a lawyer to do it, but you know, who does Yeshua warn against in the book, right? Lawyers, bankers, organized religion, and doctors. You know, so when you hire lawyers and you don't have money like that, you know, you're getting someone that's really on the side of the court, you know. They're supposed to have a fiduciary obligation to their client, but you know, they want to be in good graces with the judges. They're all part of the bar. What's the bar? Is it the British accredited registry and you know all this stuff? So, you know, we don't want to outsource to lawyers all the time. Now you can get legal counsel, but still out, you know, represent yourself and stuff like that. So Trump and people with money like that, like they use lawyers because they know the lawyer's gonna, you know, fight for them. But so yeah, he used a lawyer, but he you know, he filed a UCC one financing statement on the court case. He accepted the charges for value, and that's a whole nother thing, like what's acceptance, right? And Yeshua practice acceptance. Acceptance is a banking term, you know. Um, so he claims to and these are the documents that were presented online. Now, are they the real documents? I didn't get them from, you know, anyone connected to Trump and stuff like that, but obviously, you know, there's weight to them, you know, like so when you get into these trust stuff, you know, the financing statements are a public notice of a lien, and you become the secured party in the interest in the um assets and property of the entity that you're leaning. So there's ways to use them in court. There's ways to use them in your private life. And yeah, essentially that's what it is. It was a UCC one financing statement. And yeah, I'll send them to you, man. I'll send them to you for you to check out. And then
Yeah, for
we
sure.
could dissect them, you know, in another episode or something like that.
Yeah, I would love to have you back. This is a great conversation, and I know there's so much more.
It's
Like
so
you're
much,
just,
man. It's so easy to be off
yeah,
topic, you know.
yeah. This is literally the tip of the iceberg. So,
He's working inside the parameters. We're trying to keep him.
well, yeah,
I
I need
yeah,
that,
for
man.
sure. You have to. Like, so many
yeah,
people there's probably still people that are going to listen to this and be like, what the fuck did that guy just say?
Yeah,
But like,
man.
right,
we tried to
right.
simplify it like as much as we possibly
Nah,
could, and
We're
then
holding them back, guys. We're holding them back.
yeah,
But
there's much
but
more.
before we go, the most controversial question, and I would just love to just touch on this, and we could do a whole episode on this one subject because this is a splitting one in the patriot movement, the declaration of status, right? There are patriots that believe you don't need to do that, you don't need to declare your status to a unlawful government, and people that do, saying you know you are declaring what your status is on this land. Can you break down why you declared your status and went that route, and what that does, and you became a state national, if I'm not mistaken, and what is the difference between that and a U.S. citizen?
Yeah, so a U.S. citizen is a statutory entity created by the federal government. When we were a republic, we were all separate nations. That's why each state has their own constitution, right? So essentially, what you're saying is like I'm foreign to the federal government in the way that my nationality is a New Jerseyan. You know, so there's no there's no there's no statutory code or anything that's going to recognize, you know, a state national. But if you look up the codes, like 28 United States Code 1101 A21, so I'm just trying to jog my memory, and A22, there's two that describe a national. And typically they are awarded to like the Samoan Islands and stuff like that, where their territories not they have an allegiance to the United States, but they're not 14th Amendment U.S. citizens. So it goes, it goes into the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was an emancipation proclamation that has nothing to do with freedom and rights. That is a transfer of rights from chattel slavery to debt slavery. And then the 14th Amendment, kind of put us all on the same ship, which is citizenship. And there you go with the law of water again. So it's all governed by commerce, and there's a lot there. And I do have my national passport and all that stuff, but it's a fight to stand on it. And a lot of the people, the most run-ins you're going to have with agents are on the road, right? Like, for the most part, you're never gonna as long as you're like abiding by the law and stuff, you're never gonna really have to stand on that, but you may have to, so do corporate agents, police, like, dude, it's all in the language. Like, police enforce policy, so they're enforcing corporate bylaws and codes and regulations and stuff. So they're not always going to recognize your status, but it is a powerful layer to put on record, and to have that, sorry, what were we saying? Oh yeah, so declaration, an oath or declaration is the way that I do it, and I want to plug my family again on this. America's Assembly, they're a group that I know personally, and I really vouch for them. If you want to go through that process, check out their website. It's aanationalstatus.com. That's who I got my non-grantor trust from. I learned a lot from them. They have private communities you can learn from and everything like that. So they have a great process for the passport, because it's notarized documents that you put on the county record. Then you get certified copies and you send them out to all the agencies and stuff. And before you even go to get your passport, which you have to fill out that application correctly, you don't say you're a resident, stuff like that, that ties you back into the federal jurisdiction. And dude, it's all about, there's so much to unpack. It's all about like how you write your address, you use the zip code, that's federal jurisdiction. You write NJ instead of New Jersey, that's trademark copyrighted. So that's,
Wow.
federal jurisdiction. So there's
Is that like quantum grammar? Is that like the same thing, kind of?
yeah, that's essentially what he's breaking down, when he
Yeah.
does that. Like, you can separate your name with a dash and a colon. So it's like,
Yeah.
because, to take it back to the Bible, like Jesus, Yeshua, he didn't have a last name, right? So what do they do to us? They take, like, you have a family name, right? So they take your first name, your Christian name is what it's called, and your surname, your family name, and then they tie it together to create a legal name. And so when you stylize your name in certain ways, you're intending to create separation. So in law, intention holds weight. It's like, what are you intending to do, So the passport's a powerful thing. I know a lot of people that operate this type of stuff without that, though, because you're gonna engage in commerce, and you might need a driver's license is an extension of your social. Like, that's why they want to run it, because they want to
Right.
search your social up. But there's there's certain parameters that, like, they need to search your name. So they need, like, corpus delicti, like reasonable articulable suspicion that you committed a crime or you're about to commit a crime. Like a traffic violation is not a crime under the common law. Like, you didn't harm anyone,
Right. No
So
harm. Yeah. I mean, you need
Yeah.
a harm party. You can't be the state.
that's exactly, yeah.
Facts.
How do you,
Facts.
exactly. And then, like, you have the right to face your accuser. Well, who's your accuser? The state? The state can't show up and accuse you,
Right.
So that's where a lot of these arguments come from. And, you know, there's truth in them for sure, you know, but like, it's still like you know, you have to learn how to navigate it. Like, I wouldn't recommend fighting with a cop on the side of the road. You know, I'd rather just take the ticket and deal with it in court.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff like that, you know, because they are not, for the most part, privy to this stuff. They're trained by the attorney general, the attorney general, you know, a bar agent, you know, that. So,
What a well-oiled machine, bro.
yeah, dude, they got it really dialed, you know.
So
Most
when you're
definitely.
so all right, so when you're going about your day, you and you need to show some type of identification. You show your passport instead of an ID card.
Yeah, but I do have, you know, I do have a driver's license, but you know, I claim that driver's license in the UCC1 financing statement and stuff like that. You know, people might need a driver's license for if they are, well, here's the argument, you know, is that driving is considered delivering goods and services, and you're saying, well, I'm just traveling, going from point A to
Traveling.
point B and stuff like that. It's just like, what do they recognize? What do they don't recognize? So, you know, I used to try to navigate all that, and it's a tough one, man, because you're gonna engage in the system in some way. And what I do is I have my my cars registered and insured, but to the trust. The title is in the trust name, and then you know, technically, I've never ran into a situation where I have to present the passport yet, but well, I got a story for you, but w the argument with me would be was, like, I'm operating trust business, you know? I have a position as trustee in the entity that this vehicle is owned by. So, you know, a public agent has it's like a buffer, right? Like, a public agent shouldn't be able to, interfere with private business. And, so that's a good argument right there. But, you know, I go back to action. You know, I want people to understand this stuff to be able to execute it and cleanly and honorably and all that type of stuff. But, you know, when I first heard about the passport stuff in like 2020, man, I was in the post office on, you know, 2 days later trying to get my stuff, you know, filling out the application the right way and stuff. But um turns out I didn't they just issued me a US citizen passport, but it was 2020. So I'm like, you know, I'm not supporting the state. They're trying to inhibit our rights and all this stuff. So I didn't register my car and all that stuff. And I got pulled over, and I was like, oh, it's showtime now, you know, you're gonna use this passport or what? So I presented the passport. They gave me a ticket anyway. And dude, I wrote some stuff on the ticket. You guys are operating in the color of law and all this stuff. And I mailed it in, dude. I didn't hear anything back, you know. So was it lucky? Did it apply? I don't know. But at that time, my passport wasn't even national. I have since put the declarations on record and received the national passport, and you can verify it and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I just make that. I think that's a funny story, because it's like, man, the whole thing is action, and a lot of people get you know, charged up about this information, and they want to do everything all at once and stuff like that. And I've definitely been in that headspace, you know, but it's there's a way to navigate it whether you have a driver's license or not, you know. Um, so there's a lot of information on the internet, people, you know, doing crazy stuff, but really the ones you see that get blasted as being sovereign citizens and all this stuff are not really knowledgeable in the way of how they should be handling themselves, right? Like, the Bible says, like, agree with your adversary quickly, you know? So in commerce, that's like a conditional acceptance. Like, you know, I'll accept these charges so long as you can prove that, you know, you have jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction and all these things, right? Like, so it's not like you have to just like get rid of your name and social, which you actually can't get rid of, you know. So it's a learning curve, and I think people have to, or at least I know for myself, you have to kind of go through all these things, who's a fake guru, what information's real, what's gonna work, and that's part of the process. So I try not to be.
You,
Sorry, go ahead.
speaking of gurus and fake gurus, you attended a David Straight event, right?
Yeah,
David Straight passed. Did he recently just pass?
yeah, he did.
Not true. All right, so rest in peace, David Straight. Before we go into this, but speaking of this, we have these charlatans in this movement. There's a lot of them, but this is what you're talking about, where you got to kind of get your hands dirty and learn the hard way with a lot of these things. Do you want to go into what exactly happened at that David Straight event?
Yeah, I mean, so for the most part, I just felt like his paperwork wasn't holding weight. It didn't cite anything um, that had standing, right? So I went through with it, but I was kind of just getting into the information, and a lot of the stuff he spoke about, is it's good history. There's good storytelling involved, and it's it can work, I mean, it just depends like how you're gonna have to interact with people and agents and stuff all the time. So a good story that makes sense historically might not really be applicable to how we have to engage in commerce today. But the issue that I had at his seminar was that his people, he had these two guys with him that were claiming that they can get you your manufacturer certificate of origin, which is like the original title to your vehicle, like the allodial title.
Your allodial title.
Well, so that's another thing that people obtain for new vehicles, and I definitely suggest it if you buy a brand new vehicle, because you want it to, or a brand new automobile, right? Because that's what you buy. It really becomes a motor vehicle once you register it, but that's some of the things that we gotta navigate, right? But he had two guys there that were saying that they could get you your certificate of origin, your MCO, it's called, and it was like $300 per car that you wanted them to get the title for. The line was long, and there was mad people, and people had multiple cars and stuff like that. So they made a killing. But when they mailed me this certificate of origin, I mean, it was totally photoshopped. It was just like it was just a
Yo.
totally fake title. Um,
So there was a line. There was a line with you would say 50 people in line to get, and per 300 per allodial title that they were signing up for. And when you got it back, it was a fugazi.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
a fake.
it was totally fake. I mean, I knew from the jump there was some like discrepancies with like it didn't even have the original dealership that I bought it from on there. It had some like random company name, and like I said, like I'm not trying to speak ill on the dead either, but he basically like he framed it like that wasn't me, that was them. They were just at my seminar doing that. So there's a lot of charlatans, right? Like he has a lot of good information that he was putting out, but it's like what's applicable, like you can pay to go to seminars and stuff like that and learn concepts and framework, but what really holds weight in this statutory system is it takes time, and it takes, it's like disheartening, you go to these things, you're like, oh, all this stuff, you're connecting all these dots, this all makes sense, but stuff like that happens, and you're like, oh man, I'm starting from back in square one again, and I'm grateful for it now, though. I'm grateful for it now because you kind of, you build up this discernment, and in the end, that's what it's all about, like discerning like how you should navigate and how you should present yourself. And it's all about, for me at least, and I hope I portray this, it's all about, peaceful interactions. And while we have the right to a regulated militia and defending our property and all that stuff, yes, that's very true. But like most of it happens on paper. Um,
Right.
So
Powerful.
I love that, man.
Powerful.
yeah,
Very
And
interesting stuff, man. Like, there's so much that we could really get into, and like, I just I want to keep on bringing you on, obviously, because this is a great conversation, and like I said, we basically just put our toes in the water. Like, there's a whole entire pool, liquidity, right? Like all of that. So,
exactly.
I want people to know where they could find you, like how they could sign up for your course, like how we could get the ball rolling with that.
Yeah, so my page on all social media, I'm really heavy on Instagram. It's Sovereign Redeemed. I just got on YouTube. I'm trying to, build up a page on YouTube and stuff like that. So I have a link in my bio with that course, and I plan on adding a lot more to it. I'm gonna have some free resources on there, and really want to just like bridge the gap between you know different people that are presenting applicable solutions, right? And um,
Same.
yeah, like
Bro.
provide a community where people can connect with others that are doing this and really, gain traction, as opposed to just jumping around from topic to topic without without gaining any ground, So yeah, I mean, I really only have the tax stuff on there right now because I try to really present what I've done, I can sell people processes and concepts and all this stuff, but I don't want to lead people astray. So yeah, that's my Instagram and YouTube that I'm gonna try to build up.
Awesome.
and we will definitely link those up, man. Shane, it's always great building with you. I'm glad Anthony now is building with you. And this is what we got to do, man. We got to be solution based. We've all been talking about the problem, and look, even with us, while we're talking about a solution, we always uh, revere back to the problem. And we are being attacked on so many different levels. And I just hate this whole funneling that we have to find government to save us from government. So that's what gets, as you guys know, that's what fuels me. It's what fuels Anthony. And look, you've already started a process, and you said on the phone that it's one thing to try to get the cavalry and get all the men, but also too we have to take care of our affairs. We have to take care of our business, and I think it's important for men to be doing both, because at the end of the day we want our neighbors to also get in line and get their affairs in order, or we'll be like you said, it gets lonely. You'll be on an island,
Yeah.
you'll be talking gibberish, and
Yeah, I mean
nobody will
it
understand you.
it's a walk, that, it feels isolated, but I think solitude's necessary, right? Like he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High kind of thing, right? Like a lot of the people around you aren't gonna really understand what you're talking about. But it is, unlearning a lot of the things that we've been brainwashed to learn, incorporating new concepts and stuff. And there are people out here doing it though. And it's all, like you said, everyone could be up in arms and stuff and, protest in the streets and stuff, but that doesn't get you anywhere, man. Everything happens administratively, and that's what's recognized in courts and in commerce, So that's how I try to present everything, and that's how I try to operate my own life, So
For sure.
appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's
Of
definitely
course,
cool.
man.
Good to
Yeah,
connect, and
bro.
definitely down to come back on to continue the conversation, man. I mean, it's ongoing, It never ends. There's always things that you can do. Um, and you're always going to have to operate in commerce in some way. So it's uh it's definitely a learning process. But yeah, happy to be here. Happy to help where I can.
For sure.